Is that there?
There we are, I've got it there.
Is that? It's come up, is it? Brilliant. I've never done a recording before, so we'll have a go.
Okay.
All right, morning, Murph. Thank you for joining me. What we're going to do today is talk a little bit about how we have used journaling to cope with stresses and anxieties in our lives, and to outline some of the ways that other people might want to start thinking about journaling for their mindset. Okay, pal?
Cool, no problems.
Maybe we could start with how we know each other and our background.
No problem. So I hired you as my nutritionist / getting my life together in order last June or July, I think it was. And then we kept in touch almost on a daily basis. You were very, very sort of, I would say, quite relaxed in your coaching style, which is what I liked. But also I knew that you had an end sort of goal in sight, which I appreciated as well, which we discussed, which we mutually agreed upon. So mine, I think in the first month was to lose body fat, and then it went to maintaining weight, and just a whole sort of insight into nutrition. I learned so much in terms of nutrition from yourself. I'd never eaten avocados until I employed you as my nutritionist.
You know I feel about avocados, Murph, they're filth.
Salmon on the other hand as well. Like no. Anyway, so and I had an unfortunate rugby injury a year last February. So I dislocated my jaw, and in terms of rugby, then I couldn't do it. I couldn't play that season, and so I was introduced to CrossFit. And obviously, being in CrossFit Llanelli, you were one of the coaches there, and we've done a couple of classes together. But on the whole, I think it's been a bit of a like a community kind of relationship that we've had, and then a working relationship. Obviously, as I mentioned, my nutritionist, and then you became my life coach, inadvertently, I think.
Okay, so one of the things that we would use as a practice that you already had going on in your life and you enjoyed using was the act of using a bullet journal. Can you tell us a little bit about what journaling means to you? Yeah,
I mean, I'd never journaled in my life before, so I was going through a bit of a change in my life, my personal circumstances and situation. I was going through counselling, and toward the end of my counselling sort of journey path, if you want to call it, my counsellor, lovely lady, suggested that I start sort of looking at some of the things that I bring to the table in different aspects of my life. I wasn't too, I would say, probably confident in that sense of what worth do I bring to people. And she mentioned just one day, like, oh, why don't you start journaling? And I said, well, like keeping a diary. And she was like, well, yeah, why don't you? I mean, you know, my father was an elderly man. He's done it every day since his 20s, and he proudly displays his journals in sort of a cabinet somewhere in the house, and they're all sort of like these old-fashioned leather-bound journals. Cool. And every now and then he'll pick one out from a year and just flick through it, and it just sort of sends him back to that time. So it's just a way of obviously tracking your life, you know, your thoughts, your goals, your feelings, your emotions. And I thought, yeah, why not? Like, I'll give it a bit of a go, knowing that you've got to do something for 30 days for it to become a habit. If you do something for 30 days for it to become a habit, you then do it for 90 days and it becomes a lifestyle. So I never thought that it would end up becoming obviously a part of my lifestyle, but I thought I'm going to give it a go anyway, give it a shot anyway. It was the 20th of November. And the reason why I know that it was the 20th of November is because I went to the Works. There are other shops available that you can go and purchase, you know, your stationery from. But I went to the Works and I bought myself this really sort of cheap, flimsy notepad just to experiment this whole thing of keeping a journal. But what she did mention to me was, rather than keeping a journal, which is like, Monday the 20th of November, dear diary, She said, why don't you bullet journal? Why don't you look at bullet journaling? So I asked her, I said, what's bullet journaling? She said, I won't tell you what bullet journaling is, but I want you to research it. And I said, okay, fine. And then I want you to see if that applies to you. Because I know you haven't got a lot of time, obviously, being, single parent and work and blah, blah, blah. So give it a go. Okay, fine. So bought the journal, bought myself, some cheap pens or whatever, went home and Googled bullet journaling. And straight away, the website comes up, bulletjournal.com, and the founder of the bullet journal is a guy called Ryder Carroll. And he explained it for his personal reasons of why he developed a bullet journal. And the bullet journal is just an easy way of tracking everything that's going on in your life. So it's not so much a dear diary as it is an organizer, as it is a tomorrow I'd like to do this. So it's an intention setter, it's a target setter, it's a goal setter, it's a feeling, so you can open yourself up to what you're feeling, what your emotions are. It's everything, sort of a to-do list, it's everything in amongst that. That was on the 20th of November. I did it for 10 days. And I did it every day for 10 days. Obviously, again, it was at the start, it was quite sort of messy, not really sure what to do, but just had the basics of it. And as I was approaching the 10th day, the next day would have been the 1st of December. And I thought to myself, I can't do it in this sort of book. So Amazon, again, there are the stationery providers available, but he always referred to the journals that he used. I'm not sure how you say it, but it's called a Leuchtturm 1970.
I got one of those.
He used an A5 dotted page. Normally it's about 240 pages in there. I bought one in black and it lasted me 3 months. So it went from an experiment of 10 days and then it became something that I literally carried around with me every day for the next 3 months. If it was in my work bag or if it was sort of popping down to Starbucks, writing down my shopping list or whatever, it was there. It was always quite constant. So book one for me is, I look back at that and I look at all of the things that were going on in my life, which I saw at the time things were going wrong. I was able to go back into that and look, you've gone through this, you've gone through shit situations, you've gone through times of upset, you've gone through ups and downs and whatever, but you're always coming back to it at the end, so it's that full circle thing. Yeah, you feel low, but work yourself back up to the top and try and stay at the top there. So that's what journaling to me is. I've got an example here for you.
Here's one I made earlier. Hey, nice. Hey, Murph, I've actually got my journal on the desk right now. And I got that on mine too. Nice.
There we are. You've got A4 though.
Yes, because I run basically my whole life is in this. So I run my business out of it. I run my courses out of it. I also journal personally. This is something I've been a fan of for a while.
Yeah.
And I think the perk of it for people who maybe haven't done it before is that you think to yourself, keeping a diary is going to be a really time-consuming thing. And it can be if you want it to be that. But the way you and I do it, it's got to, we're busy. I'm running a business, you're a parent. It's got to fit into your life. So I started it as a professional document just when I was teaching as well. And it was just a case of, notes from meetings, parents evening coming up, concerned about a child or whatever. And it became much, much more than that. And allowing, I think the thing about a bullet journal is that it can be anything you need it to be because it's just blank. So with an app, for example, it tries to shoehorn you into, I'm a to-do list app, or whatever it is, it's quite limiting. Whereas because you've got this book and it can be anything you want it to be, it can bleed from personal and professional and lists and feelings and all that type of stuff. Do you want to show us what yours looks like? Are you comfortable to do that?
I am, yeah. Let me just pick one, because normally, because I used to offload so much into it, and
Yeah.
again, it just goes back to, you can make this as simple as you like, or you can make it as, I wouldn't say complex, but you can make it as busy as you like as well. So if you were to go onto Pinterest, for example, and type in bullet journal spreads, me personally, I'm more of a minimalist, so I like things just literally one style, one color, maybe change, whatever, and your creative thoughts just come out in it. So even if you would think, oh, I'm rubbish at making anything creative, you put down on paper what you feel. And on Pinterest there's so much sort of fuss about like a colorful spread, this, and then I'm going to use this ink and this style pen and whatever. Like for me, it was just literally pen, paper, right, let's get it down, a little bit of a, there we are. So let's just try and find something, and I'll go through like what I used it for personally. There we are. So this is going back to the start of September, which was my last new school term, my last school year. And there we are. So basically, we started off with a monthly sort of calendar, and that becomes like, your sort of, this is what I'm doing this day, this is what I'm doing that day, etc., etc. And you always sort of try and refer back to that, like what you're doing at the time. What am I doing this week? What am I doing next week, etc., etc. And then you can literally, if I find something that I haven't really scribbled on, there we are. 10th of October, World Mental Health Day.
Nice.
And on that, I had some things of picking the children up from the garage, a meeting I had at lunch, a parents' evening, like you mentioned, and parents' evening for using it for a personal capacity. What the Open 20.1 announcement was, Patriots beat the Giants 6-0, 6-0, that type of thing, So it's basically, you can make it whatever you want. You can make it this is how I'm feeling. I can't, this is what I want to do. So you sort of set your intentions. If you want to make it a to-do list, that's absolutely fine. It's everything all in one go. And that's what Ryder Carroll actually speaks about, is that you can make this as simple as you like. And it is literally, it comes down to what I've just referred to, is taking stock of where are you and what you'd like to do and how you're going to get there. It is as simple as that. And if you become more and more confident in using a journal, then yes, by all means, you can then go into, not to use the terminology too much, but you can use things like threading. So if you were to say something on, say, page 50, and then on page 150, you come back to that initial thought that was on page 50, you can then thread your thought from page 50 to page 150. It's there's a bit of terminology involved with it, and he does have a book that actually explains it. But
I've got that actually.
Yeah,
I've got it on my
bullet
desk.
journal method.
Yeah. So this one.
Yeah.
The terminology is not that important, really. It's just more
it's not.
Because the pages are numbered, you haven't got to worry about leaving a space.
No.
To finish a thought. You can just have a stream of consciousness and link back to it whenever you're thinking about that thing again.
Exactly. So if you were, I don't know, say writing song lyrics, for example, and you had half a song on page 50, and then you ended up finishing that song on page 150 with your life in between those pages, you would then thread 50 to 150. And it's just things like that. It's just different bits and pieces that you can actually do like that.
Absolutely. So it's more flexible than perhaps an app might be, and it doesn't force you into finishing a thought and being too neat. Because I mean, the thing about an analog system is that you you're not going necessarily to be able to file it. You're not supposed to rip pages out and reorganizing things. It's supposed to be a little bit messy. So
Yeah.
do you personally set time aside, like, to do this every day now, or is it just sort of whenever you pick it up and feel like it?
One of the things that I have now at the minute, things are obviously quite busy. Sort of, I've got the kids now, Monday to Friday. So in terms of free time, it's quite limited, but you utilize that free time as much as possible. So there is another method of journaling, not bullet journaling, but a 5-minute journal. And you would literally set yourself 5 minutes just to yourself, lamp on, cup of tea, cup of coffee, whatever it is, blank page, 5 minutes, and you set yourself 5 minutes on your phone or another time or whatever, and then you just offload that. If you want to give yourself more time, then you can. So if you feel that you're not done in those 5 minutes, so I, like myself now, I can talk for 5 minutes like that, and I've waffled, but then you can keep on doing that, and or you ask yourself 5 questions. There are journals out there that you've got 5 questions already predetermined for you, or you've got quite a large question that's already predetermined for you. I used to use it as a way of bringing myself, like centering myself almost. So like, shit day at work, fine, right, pop down to Starbucks, journal. And maybe half an hour would go. At home, exactly the same. End of the day, use it as maybe the last thing you do in the day. So this is what I'm going to do tomorrow. And then, what you shouldn't be doing is obviously using your phone in bed, or you shouldn't be watching TV in bed or anything like that. So it's using that sort of reading makes you tired kind of mentality. And I think if that's the last thing you do before you go to sleep, you wake up next morning thinking, right, boom, to quote like Ben Bergeron, you win the morning, you win the day.
Quite right.
So that's the first thing, to me, that was like, right, that's the first thing I've got to do. What that last feeling that I wrote down last night, that's the first thing I've got to do today, or set myself up to do that today.
To what extent do you use prompting, Murph? I'm a big fan of the Stoic stuff, as you know, and I got this prompt journal, and each day gives you like an opportunity to reflect in the morning and again in the evening around a specific question. So the question is like a reading of the day. So it might be something like, am I keeping guard over the way I think? That's a big thing for me, like watching the way you talk to yourself, or if do I care too much about impressing people, for example, that type of stuff. Do you ever use a prompt in your journaling, or do you just do more freeform stuff?
I wouldn't use a prompt per se. I don't use the Stoic journal. I use the other Daily Stoic. That's the first thing I read every morning.
They tie in, actually. The reading from the Daily Stoic is prompted, or the journal is prompted by the reading,
But what I do is when I set my month-set. So if I show you now, and if you want me to go through this, I'm more than happy to go through it. But so this is for April. So I know April's a couple of days away now, and I'm starting a new book. So this is for April, and I've got my numbers of the days going down, and I've got obviously the corresponding days. So the dates and then the days, and then obviously what I'm going to be doing is going to be there. Only very, very simple, bullet points. It doesn't need to be full on paragraphs. Anyway, what I've made sure that I do is on the left-hand side of the page here. So I always start this on a left-hand page. On the left-hand side of the page here, I make sure that I've got at least 3 empty cells. And what I would do is I'd use a tick, a cross, or a question mark, just to basically summarize how I'm feeling at that time. So if I'm feeling, good, and I'm feeling, 7 out of 10, happy, okay, fine, I'll give myself a bit of a tick. If I'm feeling anything, probably like a 5, 4, 5, 6, maybe give it a bit of a question mark. And if I'm feeling anything lower than a 4, I give it a bit of a cross. And what that does then, if you can, again, this habit of always going back to it. So I would normally do it probably at the end of the morning, at the end of the afternoon, and at the end of the evening. So it tracks how you're feeling, how you thought throughout the day. What you can then do, if you got obviously 3 ticks at the end of the day, you've had a nice day, you've had a good day, you feel good. If you maybe perhaps had a question mark in the morning, it leads you to think, right, well, how could I have improved that? What went wrong that morning? Was it the way that somebody spoke to me this morning, or was it the way that I handled that phone call, that meeting, that parent, whatever it was? And if you had a cross, like what, you might put it down, and then what I found is if I started my day off with a cross, more often than not, then the rest of the day is going to end up in cross as well, because you're dwelling on that first cross of the morning. If you can take stock of that and go, right, I've had a bad morning, right, scratch that, draw a line under it, I'm now going to have a good afternoon. And it doesn't have to be a tick in the afternoon, but even a even a question mark would be an improvement on the morning. By the end of the day then, if you can get up to a tick, to me, that's better than a good day. Because your good day, tick, tick, tick. No, is all right, fine, you've had a good day, absolutely fine. But if you started off poorly and you finished well, to me, that's a sign of a better day than a clear day, really. So that's, in terms of prompting, that's the only thing that I tend to do, in my sort of tracking of my mood, my personal mood. But then again, you go on Pinterest and you can see mood trackers where people are very, very creative, and they're much more creative than I, and they like their colored pens and pencils and whatever. And, they would obviously track their day based on their mood. So color would indicate how they're feeling. To me, I like it quite simple: tick, cross, question mark.
Yeah, I think the thing about Pinterest or all this type of stuff is, if you go on Pinterest for inspiration, cool. But I think there is a tendency to use it as a bit of a comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And the point of the bullet journal is that you get an insight. Your journal is going to look different from mine. The type of stuff that I would be interested in tracking and the type of stuff you'd be interested in tracking might be different. So the bullet journal gives you the scope to customize it as you need it to be. So I've seen Pinterest ones where people are tracking water, for example, and I think I would spend so much time fannying around tracking how much I've drunk. I could have just gone to go and drink it. Like, for me, that wouldn't be a useful thing to track. Or like tracking, I've seen people tracking how many TV shows they're watching. I just think, why have you got any interest in looking back a year from now on that stuff? Whereas tracking your mood, for example, might be useful if you are I don't know, going through a transitional time in your life, or if you are
even now
of course,
being stuck in the house.
Absolutely, more important now than ever, really, because the anxiety for a lot of people is quite high. If you've got that scope to set time aside and reflect on what stuff is actually within your control and what am I doing to move, spend time with my children, eat as well as I can, sleep, that type of stuff is quite useful at the moment.
What you'll never find on Pinterest, you'll never find mistakes. You'll never find people. It's always perfect, it's always coloured in the lines and whatever. It's not, and it's, you've got to be quite clever and quite creative, obviously, and credit them, absolutely fine. But that's not my style. I don't like that. That's not what I like. What I like is raw sort of emotion. Raw, yeah, exactly. Now, someone who tracks their TV programs or their book reading or water consumption or whatever, they might go, well, you track your exercise. Like, and that's relatable. And that's what makes it quite individual then. But then, at the end of the day, like I know in myself what TV programs I've watched, and I know in myself what good books I've read.
Yeah.
But I don't always remember what workouts I've done. I don't always remember what my time was. So I don't always remember like how many reps I did or anything like that at all. So that's my argument for, but you track your exercise and I track my TV.
Yeah, for sure. And also like exercise and health is something that we are prioritizing as a goal. and watching more Netflix is not. So if you switch your focus onto the things that you want to pursue as part of your life, then they become part of your life, don't they? If you're trying to watch less TV, don't track it.
Yeah. But what's going to help you live happier, live longer, happier lives? Watching, reruns of Only Fools and Horses, or, which is good because it's happy. It's my favorite program. Makes me very happy. Heard the jokes 100 times. I like
it's half the fun though, isn't it?
Howl at half of them, but it's not going to help my health. It's not going to help my mental health. It's not going to help me live a longer, healthier, more prosperous life.
So is that something that you found to be one of the main benefits for you, Murph, is that it gives you scope to reflect on your values and your focus?
Definitely, because it made me more motivated, because if you think to yourself, I'd like to run a marathon next year, that's fine. You've written it down in your head, but it's not there. It's in your head, and I'd really like to do that. But put it down on paper and you can see it, and it's a constant reminder for yourself. Then, right, I'd like to do it. It's a goal of mine by the end of the year, and then it's going to be an achievement. So it helped me. I'm not the most organized person as it is. I definitely wasn't the most organized teacher, but it did make me become a more organized, personally organized in terms of myself, in terms of paying bills, in terms of like accomplishing goals, setting goals, making me more motivated. And just obviously like changing my attitude from I'll do it when I get to it, to I'm going to go and get it.
I think a big part for me, for the like those of you who know me in real life know that my memory is an absolute shocker. So if I'm not writing, I tell people openly, if I'm not writing it in my book, stop me and make me write it down, because I will not remember to do the things. But like if your goal is something quite substantial, like running a marathon, even if you did write it down, next year I want to run a marathon, it's so nebulous and it's so big that it doesn't actually give you any steps. So one of the big perks of the journal is to say, right, maybe I need to look online about the plan. Maybe I need to hire a coach. Maybe my first step is just where are my DAPs? Like, get my kit sorted. Like, so it takes a massive goal, whatever it is, buying your first house or planning a holiday, for example, and splits it into actionable steps that you can take today, and that allows you to make progress on any goal.
How would you eat an elephant? That's
one bite at a time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just how do you save up for a house? It's that week by week, but it's that discipline. It's how do you train for a marathon? You can't go out. Well, I don't know many people. Obviously there might be some people there that I just turn up on the day. Yeah, of course you do. But you need to you need that preparation of being able to, it's a step by step, and you've got to realize it, that obviously there's an end result here, there's an end product here. You're not going to get to it on day 5. It's going to take you those 30, 40, 50 days, 50 weeks, whatever it is, to get to that thing. And once you've done it, you look back and you go, all that hard work, you've put it all in there, and you're able to look back on it. And there might, I tend to go back to my first book, my book 1, and there's a lot of emotion in there. There's a lot of life-changing language in there. There's a lot of feeling has gone into it. And there were times when I thought, this is, the arse has fallen out of my life. I'm not going to be able to recover from this. What's going to happen? And you look back on it and you go, mate, you've done that. So you've done. You might be going through a bad time now, but you've been through worse and you've come out better.
Yeah, it's just a bad day, not a bad life. And I know that when we were coaching, we spent a lot of time talking about how we can be more resilient in the face of challenges and how we can turn those challenges into opportunities. What would you tell somebody who was interested in getting started on journaling? What would your advice to them be, Murph?
Do exactly what I did. And I'm not saying my method was the is the be all and end all. If you want to take a week or two and research around it, fine. Find out about it. So I would Google, or other search engines, I would Google bullet journal method. Watch some of Ryder Carroll's videos, because he explains it in such a way. I think he used it for his ADHD. It helped him with his ADHD. It helped him go through school, and it was a different way of him sort of tracking his education and whatever. And once you've watched that, once you've read up on it or whatever, I'm not saying go out and buy the book or whatever, but then, maybe just buy yourself a cheap notebook.
Or a delicious, lovely little notebook.
All that. I mean, like, was it now? So it's the 27th of March now. So you've got 4 days. You've got 4 days left in March. It's not really, ideally what you want to be doing is starting it at the start of a month. If you want to sort of start it halfway through a month, fine, but utilize that time as an experiment. Start a new journal at the start of a month, and number that journal book 1 or whatever. So that now was book 3, and that was from the 1st of July until, there we are, the 30th of November of last year. So, and display them. That's what I do, is display them. And it's just a reminder of, you are tracking your life in words, what's going through your life at the moment, because every day is different, isn't it? But you're able to look back on that in time and age and just go, yeah, there's a lot of emotion in there. So I would read up on it, watch it, buy yourself a cheap notebook, get a pen, and then just sort of try and copy some of the things, because he makes money from the book itself, from book sales, but his method is just so simple. And if you have literally 5 minutes to yourself in a day, that's it. It works. It works. And I have spoken to quite a few people, and I've said, like, you need to, try it. And they're like, oh yeah, maybe. Don't doubt it until you tried it.
I think a lot of people are resistant to the idea of keeping a journal because they think it's going to be a massive time sink, or they think it's going to maybe unearth some hard to process emotions about themselves. And I think sometimes people are a little bit afraid to have that level of introspection. But
if they do, the beauty of it, if they do, write it down on paper, it's as good as saying something to someone and you feel better for it. And if you do unearth something like, I don't know, a truth about yourself or whatever, be honest, admit it, and write it down in there. Nobody else is going to see it. So it's between you and you.
Yeah, that's right. I think often the level of massive subjectivity that journaling allows you to have almost doesn't exist in any other part of your life. So like you can be unapologetically yourself because it's so private that it can be as emotional or as functional as you need it to be. So thank you for your time, Murph.
You're very welcome.
I'm going to figure out if I can stop this recording. Oh, there's a button to say stops. I'll just do that. Thank you very much for explaining. And I'm going to stop. Cheers, buddy.